So, thanks for coming back. Last video of this set now, this is just assembling the 107 build I've been working on. Picnic quad frame that we mentioned before. The details are in the first video about the type of frame it is and where you can get it from. First thing I'm doing is I got these little rubber bands, almost little rubber grommets that go over the legs that keep the cables tidy as much as anything else. So with my ham-fisted coordination, I'm just going to get those on now. So spin this on a bit and get those done so you don't have to watch me messing that up about. They are, that's what they all look like, obviously replicated across the quad. And then what we're doing now is we're just going to feed the motors in. Now, I put the motors in this way round because I was a bit concerned. There is a little notch that lets the wires run in, but I was a little bit concerned about dropping the motors in from above in case it caught that wire at any point and it pulled the cables out the bottom of the motor. This way you're pushing the motor up towards the wires and you're working with the slack you've already got. So the worst case scenario is you're going to end up with more cable rather than getting it too tight and snagging it. So getting those motors on again, it's like everything else. Once it's done once, rinse and repeat. So we'll spin you on again. Nice short video this one, really, considering how long it actually took to put together, because there's an awful lot of spinning on. Obviously colour coordinated motors, just so that you know which ones are your clockwise, which ones are your anti-clockwise. Details of that are on the MMW website, just so that you know you get them in the right place. As I hadn't done anything like this build before doing the video, so there was a lot of messing about, just trying to work out what was going to work best for me, where I wanted everything. Obviously, what I wanted to do now, I've got the motors in. I probably should have done this first, is get some legs so that I'm not standing this on the motor bases when I'm not using it. So let's start getting these legs put in. Spin this on. This is a long old process. I did go hunting for a screwdriver to make this process a little bit quicker, as you'll see shortly, because I got very bored with manually twisting those in because they're threaded. It does take a while. So there we are. Once we've got the right screwdriver, just get all four of those in so that we've actually got a base that we can finally stand this thing on, and that way we're not going to risk messing up our new MMW Dark Edition motors. So there we are. There's all the motors in place, there's our legs, so we're good as far as that's concerned. So the next thing really was just trying to get it coordinated in terms of knowing where my receiver board's going to sit and where the rest of the cabling is going to go from that point of view. It's a very haphazard in terms of it's a little bit of a mess at the moment. I always knew obviously the receiver board's going to go in the middle. So what I need to do now is tidy up these cables and look at getting these through these elastic bands. As I said, fairly ham-fisted, fairly massive fingers and thumbs and everything else, so try and make use of a screwdriver so that I wasn't trying to pluck these bands up on their own. So that gets all the cables through. Bring it back on just so we know where we're gonna go with that particular receiver board. Line it all up. Wanted to put it further towards the front because obviously we want my blue LEDs up front as well, so I've got as much of that as possible to see. Trial and error really, some of this bit. Now you've got these holes like I mentioned before in the picnic quad base, so what I thought was I'd use the cables that are coming off the LEDs as much as anything else to anchor the board in, rather than screwing it into the frame as such. The boards don't weigh next to very much at all, so this will be a good test of my soldering. Make sure that we don't end up pulling the LEDs out. So fed those LEDs through, wrap them round a couple of times, and then push them into the receiving holes that are on the top of the frame there. So that's the first lot of LEDs lined up and pushed into place. It just means now that we've got sort of some of that cabling is starting to go away. What we're starting to do now is we're starting to put these JST connectors together, male and female connectors that we'd put on. So obviously getting the motors hooked up to the board now. Yep, it's that time again. It's time we spin it on a bit. There we go. So we're just looking at getting all these four motors plugged in. Once all those four motors are plugged in, we're near enough there. The only other thing I had to do then was obviously you can still see the cables flicking about there for the other set of LEDs. So obviously what I need to do is just twist those round a bit. Again, a bit of improvisation, just finding trial and error just to see where those are gonna click in. Where I've got enough tension on them and they're going to keep everything in place. Not quite enough that time, so just give it a little bit of a tweak, and then rewind it. I know this is not the tidiest way to do things, but like I said, this is very much a trial and error device I'm just putting together, and it was just for my own for my own record really as much as anything on the video. So we've got one in, let's twist the other one around, put that in. So there we are, essentially that's it. Let's make sure that we haven't killed anything in the process. Oh look, the lights don't look bad, do they? Nice thing about the lights in the polycarbonate frame, obviously, it does accentuate the lights a bit. I haven't got a carbon fibre frame to try them in, but I'd imagine with the carbon fibre not being translucent, it keeps them locked in a bit more and narrows the beam a bit. So there you are, it tried to make a run for it, so we know those motors are spinning up. Just giving it a check over just to make sure that I'm happy with where everything is. Spin it on while I'm trying to find various bits and pieces. Lots of bag rustling on the original video when I was trying to find the motor, trying to find the props. These are the clear props, which have had some pretty good reviews. I've since received some of the Walker Ladybird props. I'm going to give those a go at some point, but these were the ones I had originally when I did this build. So we'll just go in, plug all these props in just to make sure that everything's in place. And then obviously once they just push on, as most people will be aware with regards to these things. Sometimes the bigger problem becomes when you're taking them off, because sometimes when you're pulling them out you can end up pulling the motor out of its housing, so just be a bit careful with that. Hubsan do a wrench, like a small spanner almost, that will let you prise them off without messing about, and it does tend to just save you accidentally messing a motor up. So yeah, I'll just check all the props are free spinning. They all were, so we didn't have too much of a problem with regards to that. Return to base again. Just a quick power up test. There we go. Okay. So, funnily enough, this tile's almost exactly the width of the quad. Not by design, it's more luck than judgment. Strange white light is the light I've got on my peak magnifier that I'm using. So the first thing, I left this, I was going to fast forward through all this initially, wait for it, there he goes. I was going to fast forward through this initially because it was a lot of faffing about and messing about, because I was trying to work out, basically when I fired it up you'll see the motors at the rear, or the motors at the rear aren't spinning up anywhere near as fast as the ones at the front, so I wonder whether first thoughts were I'd maybe pinned on the props a bit too hard and the props had got stuck. But I mean, they were, eventually once they did get going, so you look at the rear motor there, it's really grinding around, and it's at times like this you forget the most basic parts of what you do, and that is that I haven't actually calibrated this since I've installed everything. So it's that time. Obviously it's on the quad, it's left stick down to the bottom right hand corner. That's what that flashing is, side to side, and then we've got all the motors spinning, so that's good. So as I was saying, it's left stick down and right, and then side to side wiggles on your right stick, and that'll give you flashing lights, recalibrated, and now all your props are doing the right thing. From this point of view, I was having to give it about 9% throttle, or 9 out of the 100 that it gives you on the receiver, on the transmitter, sorry, and that's when it was starting to wander across the table. So I now know that I give it about 12% lift and it will take off. So that's the kind of difference we're talking about in the motors. On the original one it's about 25-30%. There we are, it's finished, it's put together with some tweaks to do and bits and pieces, but essentially that's the whole thing finished. Thanks for watching, and hopefully you'll see some new videos soon. Cheers.